tallow. I am really excited to see tallow making a comeback, if you will. Now, this is not a new thing. It has been around forever and ever, amen. But I feel like it got lost for a lot of people for a while. Now, some kept it alive, but for a lot of people, it got lost in either convenience or what big box stores were offering. And people are starting to recognize tallow again for its benefits, whether it's in cooking or in skincare. And that's just really neat to see. You can buy tallow, but you can also make it yourself. Pretty easy. It can be a little time consuming, but a lot of that's hands off. You're going to get to see the whole process. This is beef suet. Now, you can get this a couple of different ways. You can source this a couple of different ways. If you have beef that's being butchered yourself or at a butcher, you can get as much of the fat as you want. If you know someone who's doing that and they don't want all of the fat, then maybe they can give some to you. And if you're not doing any of those things, you can still go to your local butcher, and chances are they have some that you can get from them. So pretty easy to source. This is beef suet, and that's going to be the fat that's around the organs. You can do this with any beef fat, but this is going to be the best of the best. The fat that's around the muscles, it's not going to give you quite as hard of a tallow. It's still going to be great for you, but maybe not quite all the benefits that the suet has. Just, what do you have? What's available to you? It's all good. This is just best of the best. We opened this package and used some of it in our sausage that we made over the weekend. I'm sitting here looking at my meat grinder and wondering if I want to run this through the grinder, if I'm just going to cut it up into some smaller chunks. I think that's what I'll do to show you that you don't have to have a meat grinder, and because I just don't really feel like washing it today. So I'm going to start cutting this up. The smaller pieces you cut it up in, the quicker it's going to render. You can do this either there's a dry method or a wet method. And we're going to do the wet method because I want to use this. I want it to get nice and clean. A nice clean end product, because I may use some of this in skincare type things as well. And it also just makes the most sense to me. I'm also using my slow cooker for this first part, the rendering, because I want to do that nice and slow. You could do it in a Dutch oven in your oven. You could do it in a pot on your stovetop. And the fact that we're doing the wet method is going to help prevent burning. But if you were doing the dry method, which is not putting any water in it, you would need to be very careful about not burning it, keeping it stirred, those kinds of things. I just need a little flexibility. So having the water in it is going to give me a little flexibility as well. I'm using a slow cooker. There were a few pieces I trimmed off as I was cutting this up. And, I probably could have left them in there. But it's okay. Those are going to go to the chickens. I kept touching the fat with this hand and kept this hand on the knife so that it wouldn't get slippery and be unsafe cutting it. Because if you have that on your hand, the warmth of your hand is going to make it slide on the knife. So I didn't touch it with the hand I was using on the knife. For the water, you don't have to use a super strict amount. There's not a certain amount that you have to use. You just don't want it to evaporate off as this is rendering. Especially if you're doing it in the oven or on the stove top. You want to make sure you got plenty of water in there. Same with the slow cooker though. You just don't want it to evaporate off. And now salt to help draw out any impurities in this. And by impurities, I don't necessarily mean things you wouldn't want to consume, but things that are going to keep it from being a stable, like shelf-stable product in the end. So I'm using some coarse kosher salt. Do about 3 tablespoons or so. Again, this is just, I'm just eyeballing it. I'm going to put this on low. I'm going to say it'll probably take around 5 hours. We'll see. And I'll check it as it goes, and I'll show you what it looks like as it goes. Stir it a couple times here and there, and this is mostly a hands-off part of it. Just kind of letting it do its thing and letting that fat render down. Oh, my ice maker's going to be loud. It gets loud like that when I need to add water to it. Okay, I think it's done. I'll put some more water in it in just a second. This is what we're looking like at the 5 hour mark. It still needs to go a little longer. If I was doing this on the stovetop, even in the oven, it would probably be done. But I'd much rather do it in this slow cooker, especially because I've not been able to just babysit it all day today. So it just needs some more time. I've been able to just leave it and let it do its thing, and that's what I'm going to keep doing. I'm going to set it on low for a few more hours and just let it keep going. I thought I'd also mention, fogged you up. If I had ground this meat, it would also probably be done right now. This goes back to the smaller the pieces, the faster it's going to render, but you know what? This is just fine. We're just going to be patient and let it do its thing. If the pieces are a little bit bigger, you just have to give it a little extra time. So if I ground it, then it would probably already be done. No big deal though. Alright, we're going to do something to help this render a little bit faster. You don't have to do this. You could just keep letting it go. Since this was not ground, like I said, it's taking a little bit longer, which is fine. And if you wanted to make cracklings out of this, because I know somebody's going to say, you can take those fat pieces that are left over and keep frying them, put them in an air fryer, make cracklings. But that's not my goal today. And I'm trying to remind myself, and I'm just focusing on the tallow. So in order to get this to render just a little bit quicker, I'm going to take and put my immersion blender in it. And I'm going to keep it on the bottom. Now there are still some pieces in there, but that's just going to help it render a little bit quicker. I ended up letting this go for about 8 hours. If your meat's ground, it's going to go faster. If you got bigger chunks, it's just going to take longer, even up to 12, 15 hours. Since I put my immersion blender in mine, that helped it along a little bit. Now I'm going to strain this, and I'm just running it through a fine mesh strainer. You could line this with cheesecloth or a flour sack towel, but I just trying to clean the fat out of that. I just wasn't feeling it. So usually I just run things through my fine mesh strainer. I am putting it through the strainer into this measuring cup just because that's easier, and then I'm going to pour it over into that stainless steel bowl. I like to cool it in that stainless steel bowl because I can kind of, once it's set and hardened, I can wiggle that bowl around a little bit and pop that solid piece of tallow out really easily. So all I'm doing is straining it. All the chunks had settled to the bottom. Any little pieces had settled to the bottom. And so I'm scooping mostly off the top to begin with, running that through my strainer. That way I'm not clogging my strainer up with any pieces of fat. And then as I get to the bottom, I'll scoop all of that stuff up and strain all of it out. Any extra little pieces I have can go to the chickens. They'll enjoy that. Now I'm just going to put this in my refrigerator and let it cool overnight. And in the next clip, you'll get to see what it looked like the next day. It's the next morning, and this is what my tallow is looking like after sitting in the refrigerator. Just kind of loosening it up in this bowl, and I'm going to slide it out. The water has settled to the bottom, and so this was sitting on the top. Should have got my knife ready. Hang on. I'm going to take my knife and just clean some of this off of the bottom. The next step's going to be to wash this tallow or purify it. I think this amount that I have will go in this pot that's over on my stovetop. I'm doing the same amount of salt. And this salt, y'all, it's in the water. It's not staying in the tallow. So it's just pulling impurities out of the tallow. And then all of that's falling into the water. So you're not going to have a super salty tallow. This process of washing doesn't have to take as long as rendering. We've already rendered our fat. Now we're just melting it down and letting the water bubble through it and wash it and the salt do its thing. So once this comes up to a boil, I'll probably let it go 15-20 minutes and then I'll turn it off. You can go through this washing stage as many times as you want to get it as clear as you want. So we're going to let this bubble. We're going to pour it back off in our bowl, put it in the refrigerator, let it set. Again, the water will settle to the bottom, fat will float to the top and solidify, and then we'll pull it off, go through this again, and you can do that as many times as you want. I want this to be pretty good and clean. I mean, I'll watch what my water looks like underneath after it solidifies and I pull it off. I'll look at my water to see how clean it's getting and look at the bottom of my tallow to see how clean it's getting. I think I'm going to do this washing stage probably twice. We'll see. But you can do it as many times as you want, and then we'll do a final evaporation process, which I'll show you when we get there. You can see it starts to melt down pretty quickly. Already see the pretty yellow color of the fat melting down, and it's just been a couple minutes. So it melts down pretty quickly. Very quickly, this is up to a boil. I turn the heat down a little bit. I want to keep it boiling. I want to keep the water moving through the fat, but I don't want to evaporate off too much water. Some information that can be pretty helpful too, especially if you're new to working with these kinds of things, is as long as it's boiling, you have water in there. If you fry things, then you know that oil itself doesn't bubble and boil. So as long as this is boiling, that means there's water in there that's bubbling up. So there's that bit of information, and that'll help you when we get to the evaporation stage. Now this is still really, really hot. So I'm going to let it sit here at room temperature and cool down a little bit before I put it in my refrigerator, because if I put it in my refrigerator this hot, it's going to throw the temperature off in my refrigerator. So I'm going to let it sit here and start to cool down, and then I'll put it in my refrigerator to cool the rest of the way. That way I'm not shocking my refrigerator putting something this much heat in there. It's a couple days later now, and so we rendered the fat, and then I did 2 of the washing processes. And I'm going to show you the final step, and that's where we evaporate off any water that's left in here, because in order to store this and keep it from going rancid, now we need to get all the water out. So I'm going to take this back out like I have been, cut it up, and put it in my pot, but this time I'm not adding any water or anything to it. I want you to see how clear the water is now as it's separated. There's just a tiny, tiny spot on the bottom of this I'm going to scrape off, but this is the water that drained out of it this time. Yeah, it's solid, isn't it? Now we're going to scrape that little piece right there. We're going to scrape that off. You don't have to push down real hard. Just, yep. Just kind of slide it over like you're shaving the top of it off. No. Do it again. We'll get a paper towel and wipe it too. I tilt the edge of the knife down so it's just scraping the top. Yeah, just wipe the whole bottom and the edge. When it sits in that bowl, most of the water separates and is down in the bottom. But some of it gets trapped in here, and that's what we need to evaporate out.
Ooh.
And now cut each of those. Oh, now. What's boiling in this is the water. So I'm just going to keep it on kind of a medium, maybe medium high, and let the water evaporate out. And when it stops boiling, water should be out of it. So here's that good example of once the water's gone, the oil doesn't boil. All the water's just about out of it. Now that I have all the water evaporated out of my tallow, I'm going to ladle it into my jars. I did put my jars in my oven on 250 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes or so. Because my tallow is hot, I want to put it into a hot jar. That way I don't shock the glass. And that also sterilizes the jar. Is that necessary? I don't know, but it's an extra layer of precaution that we can take to make sure this stays good sitting on our shelf. Once I get my jars full, I'm going to leave them sitting on my countertop to cool down. They'll turn nice, white, solid, and beautiful, and then I can put it in my pantry and it will store for a long, long time. If you wanted to, you could store it in the refrigerator, but this is going to do just fine in my pantry. If you're watching this video, then you probably already have some ideas and uses for tallow, but maybe you're watching it and you don't. And you're like, okay, so now I have this beautiful tallow. What am I supposed to do with it? So it's excellent in the kitchen for cooking, for frying things. You can replace some of those oils that you've been frying things in, and this will be much better for you. It's also excellent in skincare. So it's very close to our own natural skin makeup. And so it's really good in skincare products. I'm going to be using this to make some skincare products. There's my beautiful white tallow, no water in it, so it's not going to go rancid sitting on my shelf. It's very clean, so I can use it for cooking and I can use it for my skincare products, and it'll hang out here in my pantry until I'm ready for it. Thank y'all for being in the kitchen with me today as we rendered this tallow and got it nice and clean. Y'all get in the kitchen and make some memories with the people you love. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, y'all.